Good evening and welcome back to the program. I would like to say a special welcome to those of you who are joining on MTV, those of you who are joining me on Facebook Live, and a special welcome also to the listeners on Freedom Radio. This program is rebroadcasted on Freedom Radio at a later date, but I just wish to take the opportunity to welcome those listeners who will be tuning in on Freedom Radio. Last week, we had the decision of the Chief Justice in the Christopher Ram case concerning the house-to-house registration that is being conducted by GCOM. The Chief Justice declined to order the conservatory to grant the conservatory order to stop the house-to-house registration because house-to-house registration per se in and of itself, as the Chief Justice put it, is not illegal. The activity in and of itself, the house-to-house activity as a form of verification, is not unlawful. But what did the Chief Justice say? The Chief Justice said several very, very important things. And she said this, first of all, that the government is illegal since March 21, 2019, which was the original date that elections were supposed to be held. If you remember, we were calling very, very seriously for that date to be respected and for the government to call elections since March 21 of this year. That would have been the expiration of the 3 months from December 21, when the no confidence motion was validly passed in the National Assembly. The second very important thing she said was that persons cannot be deregistered once previously on the list if they are not captured by the ongoing house-to-house registration process. And this, my friends, is very important because it vindicates what we have been saying all along in the People's Progressive Party. We had advised our supporters not to participate in the house-to-house registration, and we were vindicated in so advising them, because the Chief Justice said that persons who are on the list and who voted at the last election and in previous elections, they cannot have their names removed from the list if they do not participate in this house-to-house registration activity. So we were vindicated in so advising our supporters and the public at large. The third and most important thing in the ruling is that persons' names cannot be taken off unless certain criteria is satisfied, and that is you're deceased or otherwise disqualified under Article 159, subsection 2, 3, and 4 of the Constitution. And these subsections deal with being deregistered because of insanity or being convicted in any illegality concerning elections. So the criteria for being deregistered is set out in the Constitution, and it is very, very specific. And so persons cannot be taken off of the list or off of the database that was created over the many years that the register has been compiling. We have been compiling that register. So we have been vindicated by this ruling. We are satisfied with the ruling, and so our supporters can simply, or Guyanese at large, can simply refuse to register, and they have nothing to fear. They don't have to fear being charged or taken before the court, because you are protected by the judgment. And so we await the decision of GCOM. GCOM had said that they are waiting on the written decision of the Chief Justice before they sit as a commission and meet to discuss the ruling and its implications. And I believe that the written decision was delivered today, and GCOM will meet tomorrow. Now, despite the ruling, and in spite of members of the government acknowledging that they are on a different footing now, they continue, as you know, to operate as though they are a legitimate government. They are playing catch up now in their final days because they have failed the people of this country so miserably during their time in office. And now we see what is laughable coming from the WPA and its members calling for the opposition to go back to Parliament to extend the life of the government. Now, the Chief Justice said that this government has been illegal since March 21. So everything that they have done since then will have to be reviewed and will have to be scrutinized. None of their actions have been legitimate. And so all of this giving out of land and all of these things will come up for review when the PPP takes office. And, you know, I want you to listen to a clip from the leader of the opposition responding. The leader did very well in responding to WPA's call for the PPP to go back to Parliament to extend the life of the government. So this is the leader of the opposition at last week's press conference. Have a listen.
So imagine the WP, all 5 members of the WPA, that's the national membership, all 5 of them issued this press release. So the same number that they issued a press release is the total votes in the whole country, 5 of them. And 5 from the bygone era to another era. So they said that the PPP must return to Parliament to facilitate the desired extension of the life of government, and that the refusal will tarnish the party's image. Imagine they want to facilitate the desired extension, desired by whom? This corrupt cabal that is just raping the resources. You will see the first month in office, we're promising that we will outline to the Guyanese public all these things that have been done. It will shock the hell out of everyone about what's taking place now. That's what they're doing, busy hustling. They're using this timeline to just hustle and to make new promises. Pure hustle on every level. And this is at the ministerial, at the cabinet level, their friends and family. It's a big hustle now. That is what we must facilitate their desire to steal more. This is what the WPA wants, and to disrespect the Constitution. And that will tarnish our image if we don't do that. Imagine the barefacedness of these people. And then they said Guyana should become tired of the PPP delay tactics. We're trying to delay the elections now. Imagine every day not every day, but every week we're protesting against Granger to say, call the elections now, respect the Constitution. Let's go to the polls. Let the people of Guyana determine. And that Guyana is tired of the PPP delaying tactics. This is the WPA. But this is the same people like David Hines and the others who are enjoying the sweet the suite. And by the way, I saw that the minister acted the commission of inquiry, and I must thank Mr. Carberry for doing a professional job, because he said that the minister exceeded her authority. But it had nothing to do with substance of why the minister fired those 3 people at the office of the president. That is the WPA minister. What's her name again? Some Sarabu. Sarabu. Right. She just went in and fired the people. You know why? Because they believe that the scholarships that Simona Broom's kids got, and they got $20 million from the office of the president, transferred into their accounts, $20 million for these scholarships that they didn't go through a competitive process to get, nor were they national scholars. Yet they got that. That there are other ministers and relatives who got major deals of this nature. And they thought the people in there gave us the information. But the information did not come from there. The whistleblower was from elsewhere. That is why they fired the accountant too. Not just the head of the department, but the accountant. And came in trying to cover up the corruption there. And now the commission of inquiry has been launched. The people are reinstated. But guess what has happened, from what I heard? All the records are gone. So you're not going to see any records there. They used the period to clean up the records. So if we're going to go there and find out how much money has been transferred to which ministers, relatives, and stuff like that, you're not going to get it anymore. That's what they use. And so that's what the WPA, because I gather she came from the WPA. So that's what they want us to do, to desired extension, to do this sort of thing.
Imagine the WPA is saying that the PPP should consider their image and go back to the National Assembly to vote for an extension in the life of this government. It's laughable. The request is laughable, and I don't know what is wrong with David Hines and the members of the WPA. You know, when as a youngster, when I was reading about our history and what took place in the Burnham era and the type of party the WPA was during that time under the leadership of Dr. Walter Rodney, I think Dr. Rodney must be turning in his grave to see what the WPA has become in this era, what the WPA has transformed and morphed into. And these were people who, you know, when I was reading the history books, who I had great respect for and never thought for a million years that they would sell out Guyana and sell out Guyanese in the way that they have done. For what? So that they can hustle along with the other members of this government. And David Hines has gotten worse since his daughter has been elevated to the position of minister. And so the party has promised, as you heard there, to reveal the level of theft that is going on in our government right now. And then, you know, we have the lawlessness that is going on with the ministers. So the transfer of monies to children for scholarships. And we have the minister who is the daughter of David Hines, a new minister just coming into her ministry, firing people, and wrongfully and unlawfully firing them. And now they've had to expend monies to do an investigation and to do reinstatement and all of this. And she gets off with what? A slap on the wrist? I mean, Harman said that she will be written to, they will send her a letter advising her of what she can and cannot do as minister. I mean, if that's the penalty for breaking the law, if she did something unlawful, then she broke the law. And clearly, we see that there are no penalties for breaking the law. And that seems to be a pattern with this administration. You can do as you please and get away with it. I mean, if the president is in violation of our Constitution, the supreme law of the land, if he can violate and trample upon our Constitution every single day, then why not? You know, why not the ministers and their friends and families and cronies, the fish rots from the head. So everybody is just having a field day with our resources, the resources of Guyana, and while we continue the fight to call for fresh elections, which we are so entitled to do because a no confidence motion was passed in our National Assembly. And as you know, we are the only country, we are the only nation on the face of this earth that has had a no confidence motion successfully passed, and the government refuses to call elections. I think Austria had the most recent successful no confidence motion tabled and passed in their assembly, and the Prime Minister quickly replaced his cabinet with technocrats until the election is held. And so Guyana continues to make the news for all the wrong things. We continue to make the news for negative things. And while we fight for fresh elections, and while this government continues to find excuse after excuse and use delay tactics after delay tactics, the foreigners are here and they are right offshore on that oil rig. And we recently had a new discovery of oil by Tullow Oil Contract, and they are carrying on with their business, which is what they're here to do, and going unchecked, because our government cannot and will not protect the resources of this country. They haven't a clue on how to govern. They have no vision for this country, and they cannot protect and safeguard our resources. I spoke last week about how Minister Jordan said that they were shooting in the dark when they negotiated the Exxon contract. I want to know what the minister has to say now, given the revelations of the Tullow oil contract. And we know that the Kaichur newspaper is a very popular newspaper among Guyanese, and I want you to recall the headline of Sunday's newspaper, the 18th. If we could just put that up there. That was the front page of the Kaichur newspaper on Sunday, 18th of August, just 2 days ago. The Tullow oil deal worse than Exxon's. 1% royalty will be recovered by the operator. So that 1% royalty that our government negotiated will be recovered by Tullow oil contract, by Tullow oil company. And so, I mean, even if we were to accept that we botched the negotiation with Exxon because we were shooting in the dark, so-called, that's what the minister said. What are we to think of this as Guyanese? Imagine now when we know, when the oil contract was first negotiated under the PPP administration, we had no oil. I would say we were shooting in the dark. We were hoping that oil will be found and that Guyana can see glory days. So after, in 2016, when the oil contract was opened again for negotiations, because now we knew for sure that we had oil and we had billions of barrels of oil, proven reserves, how do we then go and botch that negotiation? And so we botched the Exxon one in 2016, horrible contract. And after that, the revelations of that contract, and we had so many people come out and criticize that contract, experts come out and critique the contract. And there was much there was a lot of written and published on where we went wrong with that oil contract and with the negotiations. The ministers can't say that they're unaware of it. Everybody is aware of it. It was in the newspapers. Every day we had experts weighing in on the negotiations and on the terms of the contract and explaining where we went wrong and how badly we are being robbed in that contract. And then now to find out that we failed again in the Tullow oil contract. So we negotiated a 1% royalty. And how do we know? How do we measure what is coming out from our seabed? How do we know what to receive this 1% or this 2% on? We have no way of knowing that. So whatever the oil company tells us is what we have to accept. If they say this is all we took out the ground and this is your 1% or your 2%, we have to accept it. We don't have any system in place to carry on any checks and balances to make sure that we recover as much as we can for Guyana. So I was horrified to find out that this deal is worse than the Exxon deal. They weren't shooting in the dark now, so I don't know what the new excuse will be. I don't know if this government isn't ashamed. I don't know if these ministers aren't ashamed at their incompetence. Every day, today, tomorrow, and for decades to come, their incompetence will haunt us as Guyanese. And so not only with the oil contract, but with all of these lands that are being given out, foreigners buying up prime real estate for next to nothing on our shores. I don't know what's going to be left for Guyana. Where is the concern for Guyana? Where's the concern for Guyanese? Where is the involvement of Guyanese? And they're not equipped to do it because they're incompetent and they're illegal. So what has to happen now, and what should have happened months ago, is that GCOM has to take an objective look at that ruling from the Chief Justice and operate as though the government had been illegal since March 21 and get their affairs in order and advise the president, as he so wishes to be advised, on the readiness of GCOM. And we hope that that is soon so that we can get on with the elections, that we can publish our manifesto and meet the Guyanese people, speak to the Guyanese people, and to lay out our plan, the People's Progressive Party Civic's plan for Guyana for the future, for our oil resources, and for all sectors in our economy. We saw the report last week from Bank of Guyana. Rice is down, sugar is down, gold is down. There's no logging. The timber industry is dying. What is happening to Guyana? Where do we expect people to find employment? Where do we expect the wealth to come from? Are we just going to depend on oil? So much was written about neglecting all of the other sectors in Guyana in favor of oil. The Dutch disease. Over the last 2 years, we've heard so much written We've seen so much written in the newspapers and so on, and commentary from experts. Even overseas, we hear people commenting about Guyana's newfound oil and what Guyana must do, and the government of Guyana to safeguard our economy and our people from the Dutch disease. So, and we see them coming to the forefront now, members of the government coming to the forefront now, and making new promises like offering scholarships to law students. They're trying to play catch up now. Because they failed so miserably, and we're going to be going on 5 years now since they've been in office. They have failed us so terribly. Now this is the government that first put VAT on education, raised UG fees several times since they've been in office, raised their own salaries, and now they're saying we're going to grant full scholarships to the law students who qualify for it at the Hugh Wooden Law School. And we heard, of course, the Prime Minister say he wants to make UG free. Now, we would have to be some real idiots to believe this government once again, after the things that we have seen, after the revelations that we have seen since they've been in office. And the ministerial outreach continues. We saw the handing out of school bags with David G written on the school bags. I can imagine the headache the teachers will have deciding which school bag belongs to which student when school is over. You know, they took away the $10,000 voucher from the students and from the parents and replaced it with an empty school bag. So I hope that the parents can find a means to fill that school bag with the essential supplies that their kids need for school. And then we see the rise in crime. And we have a minister, Kemraj Ramjatan, his rants, as the leader of the opposition said once, he wonders if Kemraj Ramjatan is sober when he's making some of these comments, because his new thing is victim blaming. So if you remember, when we had the several of the prison riots and the fire and so on, one day he was so frustrated, he said, "What else do you want me to do? What else can I do?" Imagine the minister who is responsible for security throwing up his hands in the air and saying, "What more you want me to do? I'm doing everything I can do. What more we want you to do? We want you to protect us. You are the minister of security, in charge of security. That is your job. That is your function, to make the citizens of this country safe." And since he has been the minister over 4 years ago, he has had, 3 crime-fighting strategies. The 2 a.m. curfew, closing down strip clubs, and installing cameras. That's the newest one, the latest one. So that is his 3 crime-fighting strategy. The 3 crime-fighting strategy that Ramjatan has to keep Guyanese safe. And of course, it's not working. Every day we open the newspapers and we're horrified by the escalation in crime. And his newest thing, as I said, is blaming the victim. You know, Guyanese we're walking with too much cash. What would you prefer Guyanese to do? The Guyanese can't go to the market and walk with their Visa card or their MasterCard. They can't go to fast food restaurants with their Visa card or MasterCard. You know, they can probably go to these expensive restaurants with that. But guess what, Minister? Most Guyanese can't afford to eat out at those places, because over 30,000 Guyanese have lost their jobs. And this is why we saw recently in the newspapers that NIS is failing. NIS will be bankrupt. But what do you expect? You have over 30,000 people now out of work, so they can't make contributions to the NIS. So the scheme is going to fail. You can't just write off 7,000 sugar workers and workers in the mining and timber and rice and all of and even the private sector workers, even right here in Georgetown, because things have become so hard. Business owners have had to stop investing as much and even had to scale back on their businesses, making a lot of their employees redundant, having to send home some of their employees, cut their staff in order to keep their business afloat. So what do you think is going to happen to the national insurance scheme when you wholesale take off all of these workers over a matter of 4 years? You take off thousands of people and you minus thousands of contributions. What do you think is going to happen? The scheme is going to fail. And so, like everything else, the insurance scheme is failing as well. And it's just a manifestation of the hardship in this country. And I knew we wouldn't have seen it in the first year or in the second year, but this is what is happening now. This is what happens when a government wakes up and, I say this government, they just wing it. They get up in the morning and they come to work and they just wing this thing. This running this country and governing this country is just a big joke to them. They do whatever they feel like doing, and they don't have a clue on how to protect Guyanese. They don't have a clue on how to generate wealth. They don't have a clue on how to preserve our natural resources. So they just wing it. And now we are seeing the devastating effects of not having a plan, not having a strategy on how to govern, not having a solid economic plan. Because with an economic plan, a solid economic plan, that in itself starts to help with reducing so many of the social problems we have, such as crime, such as domestic violence, such as alcoholism, such as incest and rape, and all of these things that we see every day, pedophilia and all of these things. People are stressed out and addicted because they can't provide for their families. We don't have a clue what is taking place in Berbice and what is taking place in the sugar belt with the sugar workers who cannot provide for their families anymore. We don't have a clue what is going on in those areas. People are suffering. And this government continues to just hang on to power and to buy time at the expense of ordinary Guyanese. And you say now that it may not affect you, but you are seeing it. And this NIS is a prime example of how we're all going to feel it. It's not, the effects of it's not going to happen today or tomorrow, but we're seeing it start now. We're seeing the labor pains now, one after the other, and it's going to increase. It's going to come more rapidly. We're going to start feeling the effects of the mismanagement that we have been subjected to as a nation by this government. I think I've said a lot for tonight, and I want to take some calls now. The phones have been going. Caller, good evening. Caller, good evening. Hello?
Hi. Good night, Susan.
Good night.
Sorry about that. I was there something. I got to name you the queen of articulation. Right? I think you do a very good job.
Thank you.
Putting your argument together.
I like to speak on behalf of ordinary Guyanese.
Let me just cut you. The way you spoke just now, I feel you're relating to people You see, this country, if it had something to test depression, like how they just go and test people pressure, had something to test people's depression in this country, you would see the scale of depression in this country that is going on. Right? Anyway, let me continue. And for the eyes, you know, I think your eyes, it vindicates Master Williams. It justifies him not calling election. Your eyes alone will make him lose the election. Okay, let me get into my point.
Okay.
The house registration.
Yes.
Right? How is the house registration exercise being executed without the mandatory scrutineers from all parties involved? That's the first question. Let me ask the question, then you will answer me, right?
Okay.
And will the verification process also be executed in the same manner? And we should be cautious about such a register being compiled without these two provisions being properly dispensed. Okay, the second point. If Mr. Charandas' vote is an act of treachery, then Mr. Williams should abolish the Constitution or the article directly involved, for it was a Constitution that validated the act and provided for it, and the highest courts confirmed it to be valid. So Mr. Williams should stop trying to deflect the real reasons for not calling the election and put the opposition to the test to see if they are bluffing. Right?
Okay.
It is time for Mr. Williams to call the bluff. Right? And one more point I got. There seems to be a continuous cycle of litigation being employed to elude obedience to the Constitution.
Right.
Okay, Susan, if you could answer the first two questions to me, I'll be grateful. Thanks a lot.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. So, the house registration that is taking place, it's now an exercise in futility, because according to the Chief Justice, you cannot deregister people. If we think about this logically, you cannot take people off the register then, those who are on the list already and who voted at previous elections. So you can't deregister these people. You can only register people who have not been previously registered. So therefore, there is no need for you to go house to house, because most Guyanese who are eligible to vote are on the list already. It's hard to even find 100 persons who are now eligible to be on the list who are not on the list, because remember, persons who will become eligible to vote now in this election would have already been registered since they were 14. So it will be difficult to find people now who have not been registered and need to be registered. But there may be a few out there, and we want them to be registered, and they can be registered through a claims and objection period. And during a claims and objection period, when you go into any GCOM office, they still have to come to your homes. This is how this system works. And so they come to your home to verify that you live there. So it's still a visit to the house, but it's not house to house registration. But you still come to persons' homes to make sure that and to verify that they live there. So this exercise is useless now because you can't deregister people. So why are you registering the same people over and over again? You still have to end up going there and taking off, scratching off and cross-referencing to see that the persons you register are already registered. So there was no need to do that. Why are we wasting money and we're wasting time by allowing this exercise to continue and not calling the elections? Now, as for the absence of scrutineers, this can raise a whole host of issues because, this registration can be open to legal challenges, and all of that, via the absence, because of the absence of proper scrutineering. So that is why we were fighting this house-to-house registration. That is why we refused to send scrutineers, because we knew that we would be vindicated. We knew that the house-to-house registration is unnecessary. It is a futile activity, and it's only being carried out to delay calling elections and giving the government more time in office to enjoy the perks and to continue their hustling. Caller, good evening. Hello? Hello? Hello?
Hi, good night.
Good night, caller. Are you there?
Hi, yes.
Yes, go ahead.
You're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
And I think you deserve to be one of the next presidential candidates of the PPP.
Thank you.
And I'd like to congratulate you on that, because looking at you, the way you're speaking, and looking at the present president of this country speaking, you are very fluent with your knowledge.
Thank you,
next
caller.
thing, should I go straight? This government is not seeing what is happening on the ground. Let them take a walk up at Skeldon, coming from Skeldon back to New Amsterdam, and then they would see poverty. They would see how people perishing, how people is in great need. They are in so much need, and they are not getting no sort of help from this government. They are not doing nothing about these people, because these people, you walk at Skeldon Market and you would find, if you have $1,000 and $20, within 5 minutes, it would finish.
Yeah.
It would finish. You would not have enough to give.
Yep.
You would not have so much to give. And I was there. I spent like 2 weeks up there. I was working, and I saw how these people were punishing. All because of the closing down of the Skeldon estate and the Rosal estate, causing all of these chaos in the air. And you'll find all the crimes is happening there because there's need.
That's
and
right.
People's doing it because there's no way or no alternative for them. Secondly, this government is talking about PPP back in the days that PPP was corrupted. But how corrupt is this PPP? I cannot see it, because it takes 23 years. The opposition leader take 23 years. The PPP was in power, and then he had get a home which was built by people who donated for him. And now Mr. Granger built a house that his bathroom, the opposition leader house, could fit inside. So, and there are only four years there.
In less than 4
government.
years, yeah.
And they could afford all of these luxury. Where does this money coming from? Now, the $18 million, nobody talking about the $18 million signing bonus. Until now, it is not in a consolidated fund. And no one knows what is going on with it. And the next thing, nobody knows what is happening with the $30 billion for Guy Support. What is going on with it? Until now, the government never showed nobody nothing.
There's so many unanswered questions, and so many of our resources unaccounted for.
Yes, then I saw on the news this afternoon that Minister Simona Broom's son robbed an employee of thousands of dollars.
Yes.
And he's saying he doesn't even know the employee. He doesn't even know him.
Yeah.
He's saying clearly, do what you want. That is the power they have.
Yeah.
They could do what they want and trample on people how they feel like. And this government doesn't even care.
They don't. No, they don't. They don't care about people. They don't care about Guyanese. They don't care about their own supporters. How are they going to care about anybody else?
They don't even come on the ground, on the grassroots to see what is happening.
Yeah.
They feel that what they think up there is all.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, caller, thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. And, you know, that is, it is part of the reason I can come here and pour my heart out to you. It's as much as, you know, persons call in and they say they like listening to me. It's therapeutic for me as well, because we are on the ground every day and we are meeting people and we are hearing the plights of Guyanese. And sometimes I feel so helpless. And you know, we go out in groups, we feel so helpless because there's so much we want to do and our hands are tied at this moment. And I say our hands are tied because we can't help them directly, but we are here, we are fighting. We are fighting for the elections to be called, we are fighting for the government to be changed. In the face of victimization and all of these things, we have persons who will come out, who will show their faces, who will come on TV, and who will fight for you. And it breaks my heart to hear some of the stories that I have to hear on a daily basis. And so that is why I highlight these things. And I'm never in search, I never run out of topics to talk about to you each week, because every week brings so much information, so much suffering, new plights, people reaching out every day. And so I will continue to do this for as long as I'm required to, and advocate on behalf of ordinary Guyanese. Hello. Seem to be having. Hello, caller. Good evening.
Hello, good night.
Good night.
Yes, I look a lot at your program. I listen for the past follow.
Okay.
My problem is that you come and you talk about what is going on, what the government is doing back, but you haven't been saying what is your plans for your government, what we will be doing different, what you'll be doing for the sugar estate for this, what you'll be doing for Skellon. We want to know what is your plan.
Okay.
And what you be doing for education. See, because you know your next program, you come and you say, well, you
Okay.
plan to do this. People want to hear that. They don't want to hear.
Right.
You don't know what is going on. All right?
All right, caller. But I would advise. Are you there?
Yes, I'm there.
I would advise you as well that we have the leader of the opposition who has his weekly press conference. We have the presidential candidate Irfan Ali, who has done many interviews laying out the plan that the PPP has to tackle all of these issues. Only today we sat down and we did such an interview, and these interviews will be published so that all Guyanese can hear from the presidential candidate as well as from members of the government. We have meetings on a daily basis around the country where we go out into communities and we meet people and we lay out these plans. And I do take the caller's point, and I will do so. I will plan an entire program where we could, I guess, forget APNU for a moment and just talk about the plan that the party has for the people of this country. So many of them we've said over and over again, some of the things that we could do immediately is to restore some of the things we had previously, such as the school grant for children, the $10,000 school grant, which would have been increased significantly by now had we been in government still, because we had an incremental increase on the school grant. The removal of VAT from light and water, immediately those things can be removed. The removal of VAT on a lot of construction materials, the lowering of fees at the GRA, the removal of duty and in some cases import tax on mining equipment, and so and agricultural machinery. And so just with some of these small measures that we can do immediately, We're not talking about the grand plans that we have already, but just by doing these small things immediately, you will start to see the alleviation of the pressure on ordinary Guyanese, because these things matter to ordinary Guyanese. Saving that extra money on your bills every month matter to ordinary Guyanese. They can do something else with that money that they save. So just by doing these simple things right now, we can start to alleviate and ease some of the burden on ordinary Guyanese. And I will do a program where we will highlight some of the things that we have coming in our manifesto. So look out for that. Caller, good evening. Hello? 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 Good night. Can you turn on your television volume, please?
Sorry about that.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah. What I'm looking at, right, is that I respect a lot of things what you're saying, right?
Mm-hmm.
But since you're touching to certain topics, and I hear that you're all touching on other topics, right? One of the topics I would like you to touch is the so-called Phantom Squad and the killings of black people children. You could touch on the topic a little bit for me, please?
Yes, I'll touch on it right away. So we have been calling from day one for a commission of inquiry into all of the deaths. They said that there are 400 Afro-Guyanese that were killed. Have you taken a look at the list that they have published?
If I have taken a list?
Yes.
I look at the list?
I look at the list. It has been published many times on Facebook, and it's all over social media. Have you taken a look at it?
No, I haven't seen the list.
Well, I advise that you take a look at it, because I can tell you right away that we have 80 plus Indo-Guyanese on that list. You have people who died of natural causes on that list. You have the criminals alongside with their victims on that list. And we say that...
You're saying that you're not nothing to do with these killings and them things. You're not nothing to do with them.
Absolutely not. It is ridiculous. And if the government has proof or is in search of evidence, have the COI. We've been asking for a commission of inquiry into these so-called phantom killings. Why is the government not doing it?
Big sister,
it's not for us to investigate. We can't we can't investigate themselves.
You hearing me? Hello?
I'm hearing you.
Don't feel no way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we are saying some of the things might make a little sense, but one of the things that really happen, and nobody have to go and get no liar or stuff or know that. Who don't know that Jack Vio was killing all them people for real? Ain't want to know that. And anytime he get back in this country as for get power, it's problem family.
Caller,
so you should forget what we're trying to do family.
I always encourage people, when you're going to call me, please call me with facts. Please call me with arguments that we can go and we can verify. We're not here to just spew propaganda or
really verify family. Most of the things you are speaking about, you cannot really verify.
I cannot verify what I cannot verify.
Most of the things you're speaking about, you can't verify.
You name one. Tell me what I can't verify.
That the people that you kill.
I just asked you if you even looked. I asked you if you even looked at the list. Imagine you're calling me about something you haven't even investigated properly. You are listening to a lot of hearsay. And what is your point in raising this? Is your point in raising this a pass for the current administration? Is that why you're raising this? Are you now saying to me that, okay, this happened, so let's leave APNU in there because this makes them better? Is that what you're saying? They killing out people? People are not starving in this country?
And if
Caller.
you continue with that body, it's more racism going to keep coming in. Because when
Caller, you know, I wish we could have a real, I wish we could have a real conversation.
Family. Mostly
No.
it's racism you pushing out. I could feel
I
you
can't,
energy.
I
It's just
can't,
racism.
you can't be serious. You're not a serious caller. I am here advocating on behalf of all Guyanese. He's telling me about racism. He can't be serious. You know, you call me and ask me about a topic. He hasn't even properly researched it. Telling me about Phantom Squad and killings and all this thing. Let's stick to the facts. We're not here to waste time. People's lives are at stake. You're talking about killing people? This government is killing people. Caller, good evening. Hello?
Hello.
Good evening, caller.
Good evening. Hey, now you talk about what the 4 years and the mansion you built up in Canaan. That property was built there, but he brought up it. I used to work there, read fee.
Yes, he had the property before, but how many millions was spent on it?
You know, the man what he had to spend?
Huh?
The building was there. The building was there. We are raising building, repair the building, do what you have to do.
What the building did? I don't understand. Speak up, let me hear you. Let all of Guyana hear you. Let all of Guyana hear you defend the palace that is in Pearl after 4 years. Let us hear you. Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, and you know, it's expected. You know, now I know I've had a good program because when I hit the hearts of Guyanese is when these scholars start coming in, because they know that what I'm saying is going to hit home for most Guyanese. And so they have to scramble and call me now to do some damage control. But guess what? You sound like your government. You know, the frivolous excuses continue. You're talking about the president had his house there. We know about the millions and millions of dollars that was spent on renovations there. What are you calling me to tell me? You're defending that? Out of everything that I have said, you can't call me to refute me on all of the things I've said before. You're calling to defend President Granger's house at Pearl. We have to get serious as Guyanese. We're not going to get anywhere if we continue. And this is what they always talk about. When they have run out of facts and when they've run out of solid points, they talk about racism. And imagine they say the PPP is the racist party. And they're the ones that's always coming out of their mouths, supporters of this government, about racism. How did we get there? We're here talking about suffering of Guyanese and you're calling me, tell me about racism. You have nothing else to call me about, nothing solid. Let us have a conversation how we're going to move Guyana forward. Another one talking about killings. So, okay, my operator is telling me that I am completely out of time. I'm sorry I couldn't take more calls. The phone lines have been going. I don't know where the hour went. I thank you once again for joining me this evening. I'm delighted to be here. I will continue to be here. I will continue to advocate on behalf of Guyanese. And I will see you here again next week. Have a safe week and have a good night.